I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Today marks 2 years since the Supreme Court voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, the landmark ruling that made abortion a constitutional right. The decision sparked legislative action, protests, and numerous lawsuits, placing the issue at the center of politics across the country.
Today, our daughters know fewer rights than their grandmothers. This is a healthcare crisis.
Well, thanks to these justices, we have also achieved what the pro-life movement fought to get for 49 years.
Meantime, the Supreme Court is stepping into the fight over transgender rights. Justices agreed Monday to hear appeals from the Biden administration and families seeking to block state bans on transgender treatments. The case centers around a Tennessee law restricting it for minors. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the war video released by the Hostages and Missing Families Forum shows the moments 3 Israelis were captured by Hamas on October 7th.
The brutal attack, the violence, this is our reality. This is my child's reality ever since.
Those are your headlines. Now let's take a look at your weather on the ones.
It's going to be a warm start to Tuesday morning for many of you out there. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. Look at these 70s in St. Louis, Columbus, New York, Boston once again. Then during the day, it's going to be hot. The heat continues for a big portion of the U.S. with many 80s, 90s, and triple digits. We're going to be watching for some storms for the Great Lakes overnight into the early morning hours of Tuesday. And then Tuesday afternoon into the evening, we'll see some storms popping up as well right around the central U.S.
The state of abortions taking center stage. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. Monday marks 2 years since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, ending the constitutional rights in abortion. The decision set off a fierce fight for reproductive rights at the state level. 2 years after the landmark ruling was overturned, 14 states have total or near total bans on abortion. That includes Alabama, Texas, Idaho, and Tennessee. The ruling has become a key issue ahead of the November presidential election. And as Spectrum's Daniel Grimes reports from Washington, both the Trump and Biden campaigns are using the historic decision to reach voters.
President Joe Biden's campaign hosted dozens of events around the country, coinciding with Monday's anniversary of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. Vice President Kamala Harris, First Lady Jill Biden, and actress Ashley Judd took part in the effort, highlighting the court former President Donald Trump for appointing 3 of the justices responsible for it. All of this ahead of Thursday's debate between Biden and Trump.
Our daughters know fewer rights than their grandmothers. This is a healthcare crisis. And we all know who was to blame. Donald Trump.
How and why does the United States government have the audacity to declare itself the authority over our insides?
The Biden campaign also released a new attack ad featuring the president warning that more rights are at risk. Since the Supreme Court's decision, 21 states have moved to ban or severely restrict abortion.
For MAGA Republicans, Roe is just the beginning. They're going to try to ban the right to choose nationwide. They're coming for IVF and birth control next. We're up against extremism.
Trump and Republicans say Democrats are using fear tactics and lying about what Trump wants to do. Over the weekend, the former president
Out of the federal government and back to the states. The way everybody and all legal scholars always said it should be.
Earlier this month, the Supreme Court preserved access to mifepristone, an abortion pill. And later this week, the court is expected to issue another big ruling regarding abortion, involving how far a state can go in limiting access to an abortion during a medical emergency. In Washington, Daniel Grimes, Spectrum News.
Meantime, justices will weigh in on one of the most contentious issues in American society. The High Court announced Monday it will hear a Tennessee law restricting puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender minors. Spectrum's Evan Kozloff is in Washington with how the case could have impacts beyond Tennessee.
Until now, the Supreme Court has avoided weighing in on medical treatments for transgender Americans in a substantive way. But on Monday, the High Court announced that it will hear a challenge this fall last year. The law would ban hormone therapy and puberty blockers for minors, and it would impose civil penalties on doctors who violate this restriction. The law was challenged by the Biden administration.
This is a massive case.
Craig Conniff is a professor at the University of Virginia Law School, specializing in LGBTQ rights litigation. He says that this case will be the first time that the highest court has heard arguments on the constitutional rights of transgender people, and says the ruling could have impacts nationwide. According to the Human Rights Campaign, nearly half the states have enacted bans on gender transition care for minors.
But if the Supreme Court says, no, these kinds of bans are constitutional, then the bans sort of survive across the board.
The Tennessee law has been criticized by LGBTQ groups like the Human Rights Campaign. The group's president writing in part, "No politician should be able to interfere in decisions that are best made between families and doctors." But supporters of the law say it's all about protecting young people. Lawyers force, quote, medical interventions for children that a state has found to be unproven and excessively risky. Meanwhile, it's a busy time at the Supreme Court, where it's expected to drop a number of big rulings in the coming days. That includes whether former President Donald Trump should enjoy immunity from prosecution on charges that he tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election while he was president. The court also set to weigh in on whether state bans on abortion should extend to care in emergency rooms.
Evan Kozlov joins us now from Washington. Evan, we're following yet another key hearing in former President Donald Trump's classified docs case. What can you tell us?
Right, the judge, Eileen Cannon, held two separate hearings on Monday, both of them connected to Trump's classified documents case, as he said. The first was Monday morning. Over 2 hours, the judge heard arguments from Trump's defense team that the special counsel, Jack Smith, should be back, saying, quote, "I don't appreciate your tone." The prosecutor later had to even apologize to the judge. Meanwhile, that second hearing was over a requested gag order against Trump. It was brought by the prosecutors. There will be another hearing on this for Wednesday. Trump's lawyers argue that it would go against his First Amendment rights. Sharon?
All right, Spectrum's Evan Kozlov in Washington. Thanks. Overseas now to the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's only willing to agree to a partial ceasefire deal to end the war, adding that Israel is fully committed to eliminating Hamas. Spectrum News anchor Carla Redditt reports tonight on the war, including a look at ongoing tension here at home.
Violence erupted between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel demonstrators Sunday outside a Los Angeles synagogue that was hosting an event about buying land. Tensions over the Israel-Hamas war have flared across the U.S. since last fall, but Sunday's clash was criticized by officials for targeting an event inside a Jewish house of worship.
I don't think the Jewish people will go in front of a mosque or Christian people go in front of a mosque to do such a thing.
California's governor and President Joe Biden are among the voices condemning the violence in posts on X. Also over the weekend, a Texas woman is charged with attempted capital murder and injury to a child after allegedly trying to drown a 3-year-old Palestinian girl who was swimming with her mom at an apartment complex near Dallas. The child was not seriously injured. The local chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations wants the attack investigated as a hate crime. These latest headlines come as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a Sunday interview that the intense fighting phase in Gaza could soon wind down, but until Hamas is eliminated and all hostages, alive and dead, are returned home.
After the intense phase is finished, we will have the possibility to move part of the forces north.
In the north, Israel could begin to engage Iranian-backed Hezbollah forces in Lebanon, where fighting there has intensified. Carla Redditt, Spectrum News.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, TikTok's election impact, how the famous social media app could play a role in this year's historic election.
Spectrum News Plus, news from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation, with balanced reporting, providing real context and
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus, streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know how much you depend on the reliability of our products and services. Now, we've taken a new step forward in reliability by identifying potential service issues before they become a problem. If you're affected, we'll contact you and help schedule a free service appointment with one of our expert technicians. The proactive maintenance of our network is one of the many reasons Spectrum delivers the most reliable internet speeds in the nation. Spectrum, keeping you connected.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Just Robert Santos, and you can see here on Monday where the slight chance, even enhanced chance of severe weather was. We're talking about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and then it's going to shift a little southward for our Tuesday. So slight chance of severe weather here in Iowa, Missouri, portions of Illinois and Indiana. So definitely be weather aware as we go throughout the day. There could be some hail, some damaging winds, and certainly can't rule out some tornadoes from this. And then once we get into Wednesday, we see a slight chance of severe weather popping up in Pennsylvania as well. So let's follow the storms here. We'll look at the future cast. You can see coming across the Great Lakes there, and then in the afternoon we see some of these showers and these rain, even heavy rain at times. And so flash flooding certainly a possibility with these storms as they come across Tuesday morning, very early while most are asleep, through Wisconsin, then eventually down into looks like Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois, and then eventually into Indiana. And then as we go into the evening hours of Tuesday, here's more storms that are expected to pop up across Iowa. And then as we go into Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock into Wednesday afternoon, notice what starts to travel across the east here. So some heavy storms, certainly heavy rain rather, from these storms, certainly a possibility here. So let's take a look at what's the estimated amount of rain here. Majority of it will be less than a half an inch in green, but in blue, and half an inch to an inch and a half, and then purple, an inch and a half to 2.5. Now, there will be additional storms we'll watch down here in the south as well. For Florida, there the amounts are expected to be lower. Be about a half an inch to an inch and a half in portions of central and southern Florida. So the next 3 days in Orlando, just count on some wet weather here with temperatures in the 90s. Thunderstorms certainly a possibility too. And then Bangor, Maine, you've got cloudy weather from Wednesday, 75 on Thursday, a cool down with some showers for you.
If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. It's been 2 years since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, ending the constitutional right to an abortion. 14 states now have total or near total bans on abortion. Meantime, the justices announced Monday they will weigh in on transgender treatments for minors. It would ban hormone therapy and puberty blockers. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's only willing to agree to a partial ceasefire deal to end the war. Netanyahu once again reiterated the country's goal to eliminate Hamas. That's what you need to know this evening. The cargo ship that caused the deadly collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge is on the move. The Dolly left Baltimore Monday and is now headed for Virginia. The move comes 3 months after the ship lost power and crashed into the Baltimore Bridge. The ship is expected to undergo more repairs from damage caused by the collapse. All right, so TikTok could influence the upcoming presidential election and possibly bring young voters to the polls. Both the Trump and the Biden campaigns have created accounts. But the app faces a potential ban in the U.S. if its Chinese parent company does not sell it. Spectrum's Jeff Van Sant has more on the app's impact.
You'll notice maybe 500, 600, 1,000 Every once in a while, I might have a video, 1,800 views.
Brant Robertson browses his TikTok from the comfort of his couch. He's a Pinellas County school history teacher by day and a TikTok creator on the side. He's been on the platform since August of 2020.
My videos are either about some kind of historical topic or, I also teach sociology, current events.
Good evening, Vice President Biden and Senator Harris.
His first video was directed at then presidential candidate Joe Biden.
So everything that was happening in the summer with policing, me, a guy who has a master's degree in African American history, I had some thoughts about what should candidate Biden say about race and policing.
He wasn't sure what to expect.
For me, TikTok was a bunch of mindless, drivel culturally. But I uploaded it to TikTok and it got 120,000 views in a day.
He realized the platform is a powerful tool, and both the Biden and Trump campaigns believe the same.
Pew Research Center estimates that approximately a third of Americans at some point during their media habits and routines stumble across some sort of TikTok content. So a third of Americans. That number increases to over 60% among adults.
USF professor Dr. Joshua Skako says the platform is a way to reach young voters, and both camps use young surrogate influencers to amplify their message.
So if Biden might not necessarily be the best source to get out a message, there might be someone else who communicates and fits sort of like the style of the platform better than either Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Brant has made a TikTok video every single day since joining. He says the platform is fantastic for communicating with his more than 50,000 followers, but isn't sure of the impact it will have on voter turnout.
We would love to think that, this is great for information, but if it's a zero-sum game because there's just as many other people using it for disinformation, then you don't know exactly how much progress you're making.
TikTok is facing an uncertain future. Both candidates have expressed concerns about the app and story. In Palm Harbor, Jeff Van Sant, Spectrum News.
An inspiring story of beating the odds coming up on Spectrum News. A nurse now working at the same hospital that saved her life.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
For how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
We'll be watching for some severe weather popping up across parts of the country. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos, and we're mainly going to be focusing around the Midwest and the Great Lakes, with flash flooding a possibility as well here, and to spread a little more. So the southeast, mid-south, and also the central and southern plains getting in on some of that heat. I know it's been hot already, but it's going up a little bit more here. You can see these are all related to some heat advisories, a big portion of the central U.S. And then when you go up to the north here, this is where we're seeing some flood watches and flood warnings as well because of the heavy rainfall expected from those storms. And let's go to the west, where we did have a number of alerts related to the heat, and we still see some of that, although some areas now, Northern California, not under those advisories anymore. But Southern California, the desert communities, the high deserts, the low deserts, still under those heat alerts because of triple-digit temperatures continuing in those areas. At the same time, also air quality pretty bad because of the ozone due to the heating of the day. These are temperatures across California and across the Southwest. We're not expecting too much of humidity, a little bit of that coming into the Texas temperatures. The forecast highs, many 90s here in Houston and Austin and Dallas, but when you factor in the humidity, it's going to feel like all of these cities will be reaching the triple digits. Same thing for Florida here. 93 is the forecast high in Orlando, in Jacksonville, low 90s for Tampa, but then factor in the humidity. It's going to feel really, really hot and muggy here as well. So make sure you take the precautions necessary to keep yourself safe here. It's not dangerous heat unless you don't take care of yourself, and make sure that you check in on the elderly members of your family, the younger members of your family as well. Ridge of high pressure, broad area of high pressure across much of the country, hence the warming. And then in Southern California, over the weekend, temperatures will warm up once again. So let's go across here in the next 7 days in Boston, Massachusetts. 79 is the average. We're above that over the next 3 days. We're below that for Friday and Saturday. Some more average temperatures coming, and then Sunday, 87. Columbus, Ohio, you get a little dip there on Wednesday, but otherwise, so a portion of the weekend, at least the first half, will be warmer than average. In New York, yeah, it's still going to be hot. We fall below average come Friday, and then going back up into the 90s Sunday.
Parts of the Midwest are trying to recover from record-setting flooding. Disaster declarations are in effect in parts of South Dakota and Iowa. Torrential rains caused a railroad bridge that connects the two states to collapse. At least one person has died.
There were some evacuations that happened last night. I know that we had the IMAC team and the Swiftwater Rescue Team out of Sioux Falls and Game Fish and Parks were going door to door, getting people out of dangerous situations, and we lost some houses as well. So my heart goes out to those families.
Meantime, in Minnesota, entire communities under a foot of water. A new report shows renters in the U.S. are struggling more than homeowners in an unaffordable housing market. That's according to Harvard University's Joint Center of Housing Studies. Rent has been rising faster than incomes for decades. Well, renters who spend more than half of their household income on housing and utilities rose in 2022 to a record high of 12.1 million. That's a 1.5 million increase from levels seen before the pandemic. Well, it might just be the most exciting thing in sports. Game 7 to decide a championship. Tonight, the Florida Panthers host the Edmonton Oilers with the Stanley Cup title on the line. The Panthers are looking to snap a 3-game losing streak after winning the first 3 games of the series. The Oilers hope to shock the world on the road in South Florida. If they win, they would be just the second team to come back from a... Toronto did it back in 1942. Game 7 tonight starts at 8 Eastern. Being born is usually a joyous occasion, but it's the unusual circumstances surrounding one Ohio woman's birth that drove her to pursue a career she loves. And it gave her the chance to return to the place where it all began. Spectrum's Aaliyah Keller shares her inspiring story.
Haley Good enjoys nursing.
I wanted to go into nursing just because I grew up knowing how much time I spent as a patient.
It all started when she was born nearly 4 months early and weighed only 1 pound, 9 ounces.
And that's super early, and you really should not be born that early. So everything was underdeveloped.
Good had respiratory complications and cardiac problems. She spent the first expectancy was short. But she beat those odds and now says those struggles gave her life purpose.
I knew the effect that those nurses had on my life caring for me, and so I just wanted to be able to give back to families and patients that are in the same situation.
Now it's coming full circle. While she was studying nursing, she did an externship at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus. And thanks to that experience, she's now been offered a job to work in the same NICU unit she was treated in as a preemie.
It's definitely surreal, just knowing that being able to work in the NICU and seeing patients that are just as tiny as I once was, that really does put it into perspective.
Her hope?
Just to give back to families and give them hope that their child could grow up and go to nursing school or whatever they want.
Is who saved her life. For Spectrum News, I'm Aaliyah Keller.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Our Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecast with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
Designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
That's why I'm never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go. Babe, I'm never gonna let you go. No, no, never gonna let you go.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go.